Hello, welcome to CarCast. I'm Matt, the moderator, DeAndrea. So Goldberg is out again. As you guys know, he's preparing for his main event match this Saturday. You guys can watch that on NBC, I believe, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, or streaming on Hulu. Or maybe it's Peacock, streaming on Peacock. So you guys have been listening to the podcast, tuning in. He's been prepping for a long time and changing the diet and doing the stem cell therapy and working out. So we're very excited about that. So he's there now. He's on site. He's prepping more. He's training. It's going to be an awesome show, as will this podcast. We have our good friend Gordon McCall coming back in to talk about all things Monterey Car Week. Before we get started, a words from our friend at Bet Online. They continue to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season around the corner, Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB and UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between the games, you can head on over to the BetOnline casino for all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and their live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. BetOnline, the game starts here. Okay, Gordon McCall, welcome back to the show. I know we at least try to make this sort of an annual thing, but here we are getting into Monterey Car Week. Um, for those of you that haven't listened to the shows with Gordon in the past, Gordon is the co-founder and the director of motorsports for the Quail,
Correct, Matt.
right? Okay.
Yep.
But you have an events company called McCall Events, and you created the Jet Center party as well. When I know we spoke a couple of years ago when that was sold to Haggerty, and I'm sure you're still involved in some capacity, if anything, just to go there and just see what it's evolved into. But they've done something interesting with Jet Center. They brought in their Broad Arrow auctions, and
Yep.
they've uh, renamed the event
Mhm.
Motorlux,
Yep.
but it still seems very much has a lot of the character of what you built there for so many years.
Well, Matt, it's funny. I really didn't realize when I created that event that it was innovating something that didn't exist at the time, which was merging automotive and aviation interests together in a social setting.
Yeah,
Uh, it was a natural for me because I had aviation clients, I had automotive clients. I like throwing parties. It was just it was a natural evolution. So, for 30 years, my wife Molly and we had a pretty good run. What's interesting about Motorlux, and McKeel Haggerty's an old friend, it was something I'm flattered that Haggerty saw the value in the event, and quite frankly, after 30 years, it was a perfect time to pass the baton on. But the integration of their Broad Arrow auction company is something that I'd like to think I had a hand in inspiring them to do because years ago I used to run the car department for Christie's. And I pulled the sale out of Pebble Beach and brought it to the Jet Center back in 2007. So it's not exactly a new idea, but it's an idea that works.
yeah,
We've got a captive audience in the beginning of the week. People's checkbooks aren't empty yet.
right.
The Car Week experience. And the whole idea of a preview, an auction preview, taking place during a social setting, had the same effect, and I'm sure it still does, of people getting in the back of a Gulf Stream with a glass of wine and
Yeah,
discussing a purchase. Even though we weren't blatant about that, I really did appreciate the corporate support we got along the way. But the reality is, a lot of business was being done at that event. I'd like to think that that's still the case. It's like a cleverly disguised round of golf.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is better for me. I'm not really a golfer at
Me
all.
neither. Me
I
neither.
would much
So,
rather, be at that event. Although
yeah.
I kind of feel like so much of Monterey Car Week is that. You're right. It is, when I enjoyed the SEMA show, I enjoyed the automotive
Yep.
aftermarket, and going to
Yep.
the SEMA shows, I still chat with and work with a lot of the automotive aftermarket companies, but it's just via email and stuff. And then
Sure.
the SEMA show, being able to get with them again in person, swing by the booths, maybe do some interviews, just chat with them or see them at a
Yep.
few events. and just kind of find out more about like what's going on with them. Is there anything we can do together? And that's a big part of Monterey Car Week as well.
You're absolutely right, Matt. And I've always contended from the very beginning, and I've been at this for quite a while actually. It's about the people, period. We all have a lot in common when it comes to our interests in automotive, motorcycling, aviation, all those wonderful things that are linked together. But the reality is, it's about the people. And so, my goal has always been find a way to get people together, and it's amazing what can come out of that. And
Yeah.
that was really the inception of the Quail concept. When I came up with that idea, I was coming off of 28 years at the Pebble Beach Concours. I started there as a volunteer when I was going to Carmel High School, and I stayed through until I eventually became a judge and just saw kind of an opportunity to do things differently. The chairman of the parent company at Quail Lodge is a dear friend and had this idea, shared it, and 22 years later, it turns out it was a pretty decent idea. And I just love working with the team at the Peninsula Signature events, which I get to do every day. It's an amazing crew. It's a year-round commitment. And I mean, it's a different show. But again, it's very important that it's about the people
Yeah.
first, and nobody does hospitality better than the Peninsula Hotel Group. Hands down. And each guest is a valued guest, and it's a VIP experience for everybody. So it's unique.
Yeah. So tell us about the Quail because podcast listeners may even hear us throughout the year ago, can't wait for the Quail, can't wait for the
Uh,
Quail. But that doesn't really describe it that much because the Quail is the location and there's more than one event. You do motorcycles, you do cars, and we just sort of summarize it and just call it the Quail because
the
in the car
Quail.
world, we just know it as the Quail.
Well, what's really interesting about that, Matt, is the parent company has renamed the hotel the Quail.
Yeah, that's why
You
it
know,
got confusing. We noticed
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it used to be the Quail Lodge and Golf Club, which it's still a lodge and a golf club. But the power of that show and just the verbiage of the Quail has resonated. And again, 22 years later, there still really isn't anything like it. And it's not that we view things in a competitive way because we don't. It's actually, part of my reasoning behind creating that show was for it to be complementary of everything else that goes on during Car Week. My wife and I are both from here, from the Monterey Peninsula. We live here. We're locals. We're impacted by what takes place during Car Week, and just wanted to find something that was different. You can't please everybody. I kind of proved that at the Jet Center. We limited the capacity there. And quite frankly, the whole inception behind the Quail concept was a daytime version of what I was doing at night at the Jet Center, which is just really try to please the group that you've invited and
Yeah.
are participating with you. Don't go at it with the shotgun approach and see how many tickets you can sell. Just concentrate on your wheelhouse, your strength, and go from there. And that's what the Quail is all about. And nobody does it better. I mean, it's my friend Tom Bryant, who was the editor at Road and Track magazine for so many years, sadly no longer with us, but I loved the phrase that he coined, which was something to the effect of it was like going to what was it? Going to a five-star restaurant and having a car show breakout.
Yeah.
Kind of a twist on that hockey expression. And it's really true. You eat and drink your way through the day. You see there's amazing people there. People from all walks, really interesting, mostly car type folks. But it's just a fabulous day. And again, the hospitality angle is bar none. Nobody does it like Quail does.
Yeah,
Nobody.
I would agree with that 100%. And I mean, we've both been to some of the greatest car events,
Yeah.
around the world from Goodwood,
Yeah.
the hill climb, the vintage race, the Amelia,
All of it.
of course, the Quail. I just
Yeah.
spoke to the guys that do the bridge and the
Oh yeah.
Hamptons, their event.
Yeah. Fabulous
And
show.
and talking to them, and it's like that's an amazing show. And how do they make it a little bit different? But still, they can't help but go, "We want to be the Quail of the East Coast or the Quail of the Hamptons." And
Awesome.
I was like, "Well, I think that's nice to hear.
It
I think
is.
it is really nice
It
to."
really is. And all of these different events, especially all the ones you just listed, they're all unique in their own way, and there is just plenty of room for all of us to do what it is that we do and provide an entertaining thing for people to experience, you know?
Like you said, you've been doing this for a while, and are all of those events have grown over the years. All of
Yeah.
Monterey Car Week, from the track to the
Yeah.
events. I was just talking to the group that puts on the Concorso
Oh
Italiano,
yeah.
and they're saying they're doing a 2-day event. It's
Yep.
Friday after the Quail.
Yep.
They
The
were very
pack.
specific about that.
Yeah, I know.
uh, and then their Saturday event,
Yeah.
and so even that has grown. What
Yeah. There's been a lot of growth. There's
is
no
that
doubt
something
about it.
that you were expecting? Was that something you were a little surprised about?
You know, Matt, honestly, I saw it coming. Again, being local and having been in the car business, at the time, I had a restoration business, so I was dealing with collectors every day of the week, which I still do, just kind of in a different capacity these days because I sold that business years ago as well. But I saw it coming. I really did. Which is why I picked Wednesday night for our Jet Center event.
Yeah.
People thought I was crazy at the time. It's like Wednesday, there's crickets on Wednesday. It's like, well, no, actually. Monterey Airport fills up with private airplanes on Wednesday, and the
Yeah.
prehistorics back then, what they were referred to as, was going on the week before. And in my view, the people that kind of mattered were already there, and I wasn't out to entertain the world. I just thought, I want to give these folks something to do. And so I picked Wednesday night, which was not competing with anything else. Well, now Wednesday is the middle of everything,
Yeah. You're
and in a
right.
lot of cases, it's what starts car week for a lot of people.
It does for us.
Yeah.
And even then it was sometimes a little more difficult to get out there for the Wednesday night, but now it's really become more of a priority, if
Yeah.
anything, just for your event that
Yeah.
we've been fortunate enough to be able to go to for many years now. But yeah, the prehistoric races, I, you know, those are great, but you're right. It requires more time off. And
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
going to start
that's
to
a lot of
plan it,
time.
yeah,
Weekend to weekend is a lot of time. Matt, something I always appreciated about what you and Adam would do is you kind of got my Datsun thing, you
yeah,
know. So right, that runs deep in my veins. First car, blah blah blah. We've told that story a million times. But I always had something at the Jet Center that was a nod to that world because I
yeah.
always viewed it as being underappreciated. Even the big stuff, even the BRE factory cars and the factory drivers and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It's no longer the case, and I think we can owe a lot of that to Adam's interest in preserving the history of Datsun racing.
Oh, well, I know he appreciates hearing that. And I think he would say it wasn't him, but he
I know.
does appreciate doing that. And I agree with you that I still think Pete Brock is an
Yep.
underappreciated
Yep.
important part of motorsports history, not just with the Datsun
Yeah.
side. And I think still as time goes on, and he will his star will continue to rise. And
Yeah. His star rose commensurately and appropriately, sadly, after Carroll left.
yeah,
All of a sudden, people started realizing, now, wait a minute, a lot of what Carroll did wouldn't have happened without Peter Brock. And
yeah,
so, there was that whole thing. But, interestingly, the Datsun thing, I always like to do a little twist at Quail as well, because the unexpected to me is a good thing during Car Week. We've got 25 Ferrari F50s coming. We're doing this, there's a 30th anniversary of the F50, and
okay,
it's going to perhaps be the largest North American gathering of them. Um, but what's also happening in my post-war racing class is I've got the four-time SCCA National Championship 240Z of Bob Sharp that Dave Stone owns.
okay, yeah.
That
Dave's such
car's
a good
coming.
guy.
Dave's a great guy, dear friend, great guy. He's bringing that car, as is Glenn Chu is bringing the Walt Moss 45 FAR Performance West Coast SCCA National Championship car. So we've got the East Coast, West Coast thing.
Okay,
So it's a little nerdy for the people that are there to see the Ferrari F50s to have a couple of Datsun 240Zs. But the reality is those cars were as important in their day as any F50 was.
I don't know that anybody saw this yet, but I'm pretty sure we're bringing out the BRE 510, Datsun 510 to the track, and Adam's going to be racing that. Now, the run
Terrific.
group is like for Friday, I believe. It's going to be more toward the end of the day after the Quail, like five.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
yeah, it's going to be.
Oh,
And
good.
I think Saturday it might be like a morning and an afternoon. So,
Okay.
um, which, for us gives us a little break on Saturday to run over to the
Yeah.
Corso Italiano for a bit
Yep.
because it's
Yep.
not that far and then come back. But yeah, so the BRE 510, I believe we're going to have that out there.
Oh, that's
The
terrific. Well,
guys are working on it right now, our guys.
I'm part of the group, the Friends of Laguna Seca. There's a handful of us that got together, and we've
Yeah.
now taken over the management of the racetrack. So I'm happy to hear that you guys are going to be running
I
it
was
again.
going to ask you about that. So, we spoke to Bruce Canepa
Yeah,
and we
he is the driving force behind the group,
right. So Bruce has
hands
been this
down.
driving force about, and then for you guys listening, it's a group called Friends of Laguna Seca. And it's this, you can explain it better than I can, but it's a group now that sort of manages and oversees the
Mhm.
track.
Yep.
Bruce was giving me a little bit of insight behind it, just going to court and fighting for it,
Oh,
and getting a big land
unbelievable.
lease and
Unbelievable.
making it so the track not only survives for, for
Yep.
5 years or 10 years, but for a long period of time. Uh,
We have a 55-year lease.
there you go. That's what he was
Counting.
saying.
And you know what's funny, Matt? Not to bore you with the details of it, which there are many, but Laguna Seca was founded back in late 1956 by a group of local Monterey businessmen who were racing enthusiasts. Guys like Ed Leslie that went on to have, big careers racing, right? But he was just a local businessman. And what's interesting, after many, many years of mismanagement, Laguna Seca deserved better. And Bruce Canepa is hands down. Ross Merrill and Bruce Canepa are the driving force behind the Friends group. We're a tight-knit little group, and we all have different things to offer to it. But what's interesting is it's now back in the hands of a group of local businessmen who are racing enthusiasts. We all race. We all love that place.
Yeah.
It's a nonprofit. We're not getting anything out of it other than hopefully preserving the history of that famous, deserving racetrack.
Well, I think the group that you guys put together to oversee the track understands and appreciates what the track means, and then and the surrounding areas. Like I think it could be a little unfair to go, hey, we're gonna be in charge of a racetrack, but we're we don't even live in the area. We're not even familiar with the area. And I think you should
Right.
be
Right.
familiar with the area. And I think another important part, and maybe you guys are just starting to think about it, but an important part is yeah, you guys have this 55-year lease. You start to think about who do you guys start to bring in as the future of the Friends of Laguna Seca?
Yeah.
What people do you
Yeah.
bring in? The young generation, Bruce Meyer, I'm sure, is actively
Yeah.
involved. Maybe Bruce Meyer's son. He's someone who kind of has been seeing what's going on for a while, going, he should be maybe an
Yeah.
active part.
Evan's a great guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just saying, like
Yeah.
somebody like that, the next generation to the next generation that can look at what you guys are doing and keep those intentions alive, keeping those intentions moving forward for decades.
We're focusing on that. We really are. And fortunately, it's kind of amazing when you think about it, but 2 hours north of us is Silicon Valley, one
Yeah,
of the largest automotive think tanks out there with some of the brightest, the youngest, brightest. That's the future of the automotive industry, just up there. They've got a racetrack in their backyard that they love to have access to.
yeah,
And so, we've got a lot of conversations going on in terms of perpetuity of the success of that track. There's a lot to fix, and we've got Mel Harder who came to us from, he used to run Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he used to run COTA, he used to head up Chip Ganassi Racing. Mel's a great guy. Obviously a major motorsports figure, and he's at the helm out there. And there's great folks working out there, and it's all good. It's heading in a really good direction.
yeah,
That's for sure. It deserves it. It's Laguna.
yeah.
I was just on it the other day. Not to go off on too big of a tangent, but Moto America is running the superbike races this weekend.
Okay.
Wayne Rainey's back on a motorcycle, if you can believe it.
Wow.
He's been in a wheelchair for over 30 years. As a former, you're never a former three-time world champion, but as a three-time MotoGP world champion, he is riding a motorcycle on that track, which he hasn't done since 1991 when he won the Grand Prix there. We went out and tested last week, and it was phenomenal to be on a track with Wayne. And we clocked 122 under the start-finish bridge, so he has not slowed down at all.
I mean, just
That track's amazing.
no fear, right? Just no fear.
No
Just
fear.
on it. Did you guys have to modify the bike?
Yamaha has built this 900cc motorcycle is amazing because Wayne did ride at Goodwood 2 years ago. We went to the hill climb and
Okay.
he rode his third world championship Yamaha 500 up the hill twice a day for 3 days in a row. That bike was a beast. Those bikes were trying to kill those guys.
Yeah.
Needless to say, the two strokes were vicious. They modified that bike with hand controls so he could ride it, but it was a daunting task. This bike is it's basically a Rainy replica. It's a four-stroke 900cc bike that's an automatic transmission to begin with. And then they modified it to
Okay.
suit his needs. And he clips in his Alpenstar boots, mountain bike clips.
Yeah.
He's locked in when he's on it. But I tell you, he has not slowed down. And he's going to ride on Saturday at the races. He's going to ride demonstration laps with Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson. You go down the list, all the great
Yeah.
Americans, all the guys he raced with, they're all coming for this. So it's going to be exciting.
That's going to be very
It's
exciting.
not going to be a dry eye, Matt, I'll tell you.
So it's an automatic, and
Yep.
then the hand controls for the so it's the brakes are left and right hand for the brakes.
Yeah,
He doesn't need a
exactly.
clutch. He doesn't need a yeah. So now
Exactly.
he can you don't have to like build both brakes into one hand and a brake
Nope.
bias. Like
Nope.
he can control it himself.
And something that was just beginning in his day, I think it's Mick Doohan who ended up perfecting it because of all of his shattered legs that he'd had in his career. All those guys are so banged up. I mean, the 500s were brutal, but they had a thumb brake, a thumb rear brake
Yeah.
that
Okay.
a lot of them use now. I mean, the bikes today, no disrespect to this new crop of riders, they're incredibly talented, but that motorcycle's doing a lot for them.
Yeah.
A lot that the 500 GP bikes did not do. Those things were
Yeah.
no traction control. I mean, they were vicious, they just were. Plus, the rivalries were pretty intense too. Those guys were trying to kill each other too.
And so much of racing has kind of evolved that way as well. How we're using
Yeah.
technology. I mean, the use of technology is interesting. Like, yes, it seems like there's a bit of analog aspect that's been removed, but
Yeah.
really the advancements in technology has made the racing so much safer than anything else.
Oh,
And I
big
think
time.
that's
That's huge.
big that's the big thing.
It's huge. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all good.
So Moto America, you guys are going to have out there, but also Moto America is one of many events other than Monterey Car Week. I
Oh
think
yeah.
so. I think part of what you guys were doing as Friends of Laguna Seca is making sure you're bringing back deals. I assume IndyCar is going to be still
Yeah.
doing something out there. I don't know. Does Trans Am go out there? Does
Trans Am comes out, and huge announcement, and real hats off to Bruce Canepa on this one. But Porsche is the official vehicle of the track now, and they're
yeah?
going to have a year-round driving school there,
I
which is
saw that announcement. Yeah.
another Porsche experience center. I mean, who doesn't want to come to Monterey, and who doesn't want to run a Porsche at Laguna? I mean, it's pretty cool.
And to do it under the oversight of Porsche, they're
Yeah.
talented drivers. What a great way to do
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. So you get great coaching, great cars, great track, bucket list stuff.
How,
It's pretty cool.
how often have you gotten your bicycle out there? Because I know you're a big bicycle guy.
Yeah, so I ride I started actually many years ago, the Twilight series. We have a whole series that runs on Wednesday evenings after the track is finished for the day during daylight savings time. That track is so much fun on a bicycle, Matt. I absolutely love it. I'm proud of this. It's one of those few sports as you get older, you just have to work harder. But I started a cycling club at the Navy Postgraduate School here in town, and that's all special forces guys and gals, and they're just the toughest of the tough. But cycling requires a lot of nuance. There's a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of trickery involved. Just watch the Tour de France, and you'll see how much goes on in a peloton. Um, That track though, we do a downhill coasting competition at the end of the day
Okay.
all over. So you can wind up and sprint to a line at the top of the corkscrew and you have to coast. You can't touch your pedals all the way down. And I've made it past the start finish bridge, which I'm really proud of. And I've got the record by about 20 feet. So
Okay, that's good. That's impressive.
descending has always been my favorite thing.
I'm curious though. You don't follow the same line as the cars. You don't have to go out as wide. You don't have to like,
No, you try to cut as much off the track as you can.
yeah, you're just
You know,
trying to create a straight line as much as possible.
exactly. And so, and you counter steer just like you do on a motorcycle. You flick it, even with, super skinny tires. It's amazing the lean angle you can get on a road bike.
Yeah.
It's really what kind of separates, and it's fun to watch the aerial shots of the Tour de France. You can kind of tell the guys that are fearless on the descents, and typically those guys ride motorcycles too. They've got that experience, and I know I personally apply that. But you can bomb the descents, and I've never been a climber. I'm 6'5", 216. I'm not a climber, but I love going downhill fast. And so, yeah, you cut as much off the track as you can. You don't have to go as wide as you do in a car or even a motorcycle.
And
It's so much fun.
when you're doing that event, you're doing the downhill coasting. You just got to make yourself as small as possible.
Yeah.
How do you, you're 6'5"? How do you tuck
Yeah.
yourself into a little
It's
ball?
amazing. It's amazing how you can tuck on a bike, and all my bikes are super aero, and you just you don't touch the brakes, and you just tuck in, make yourself as small as you can, and fortunately, you pick up a little tailwind at the end of the day as you go through 11, and
Okay.
then if you just hug the wall, you get a little bit of a NASCAR draft off the off the wall with a little tailwind. It's really fun. It's
Yeah.
it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
Okay, let's just take a quick
Yep.
break and we'll be right back. Okay, so talking about bicycles at Laguna Seca, it seems like it's super fun. But I want to go back to the Quail for a second. You said you're going to have probably the largest gathering of F50s. You said
Yep.
F50s
Yep.
that we've seen. I don't know, maybe ever. What is the theme of the Quail this year? What else are you curating for that event? I know
Yeah.
there's going to be a couple surprises, but so
There always are.
we've being on the media side, we've gotten notifications reaching out going, hey, you don't want to miss the Gordon Murray display that's
Yeah.
going to come out because
Yeah.
he's really leaning on this how can I explain it, sort of the bespoke version, sort of the
Yeah.
he was saying the Gordon Murray Automotive very planned vehicles in engineering,
Totally.
and aerodynamics and performance. So having the T50, the T33,
Yeah.
but that's in a sense kind of limits Gordon's creativity, if you will, and
Hmm.
him go, well, what else can we create that's maybe outside of the parameters that define Gordon Murray Automotive, GMA?
Yeah.
And so he's got a division that allows some customization, if you will, some like
As
a
if a
coach
as
work.
if a Gordon Murray design to start with isn't enough of a customization,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah, but talent like that has no ends, and the launches and Gordon's been a great supporter of the event over the years. But the launches that are done are just amazing at Quail. There is no other event where there are as many debuts. I think we had 19 of them last year, and it's
You
crazy.
know, some good friends of mine that I just think are just two of the sweetest guys around are Mike and Jim Ring, the Ring brothers.
Absolutely.
And I know they've been working on
Yeah.
one of their custom builds in Aston Martin for a long time. And then
Yeah.
uh, I believe they are maybe going to debut that at the Quail. And this is going to be out of the ordinary for them. They're great guys,
Oh yeah.
but and we get with them every year at the SEMA show, and they've been to the studio a bunch of times. They've brought cars over the years. One of their very first cars at the SEMA show, Adam and I went to, and Adam kind of emceed the debut of that car very early in the CarCast days, and that's when we initially met them. Is I knew about the car, and I thought it was going to be really cool to see, and I told Adam, I was like, we're building CarCast, we should go and try to be a part of this. And
Yeah.
we pitched it to everybody and it sounded like fun and we went out there and had a great time ever since. But uh,
Their
stuff
builds
like
are
that.
amazing. Yeah, their builds are amazing, and what they're bringing is not a Mustang or a Camaro. It's a whole departure for them, and it's everything I've heard. It's just off the charts. Typical rig
Yeah.
run.
So
Yeah,
they've been on the podcast before. They've told us they've been working on an Aston
yeah,
Martin.
yeah.
They didn't get into the year or whatever the model of the Aston Martin. They've done a few little teasers online at that point, but I'm not giving anything away by saying they've been
No,
working on an Aston Martin because
no,
they've
no.
come on like a year or two ago and said we're working on an Aston
It's
Martin.
out there. So, in addition to all of these wonderful manufacturer launches, and it's everyone from Singer. I mean, you just go down the line. It's
Yeah.
Hennessy. It's all the Pagani. I mean, it's all the really cool Koenigsegg over the top.
Yeah.
They're doing business, which is really really great, and they've got access to some wonderful media. But in addition to that, it's also the 60th anniversary of the ISO Grifo, which
Okay.
is a little off center, which
Yep.
I really like. And I think there's 15 or so, 15, 16 cars. They're all different. Talk about bespoke. No two of those cars are the same. Great Italian styling with domestic power plants. So that's going to be fun. Something I'm personally really excited about is the 60th anniversary of the Shelby GT350.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of leaning in on the Ford Mustang anniversary, but it's like, yeah, well, it's the first year of the GT350, and I've got 5 or 6 R models showing up, which is really neat. There's only 30, what, 6 of those or whatever it was,
Yeah.
34, 6. Um, some of the original owners, which is really fun, and about 25 GT350s. It's a great group. Some of the original crew, Venice Wrecking Crew, showing up. Hopefully, we can get a good fireside chat going. Dear friend Peter Brock doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to loop him in on. I'd
Yeah.
love to sit down with Peter and Jim Marietta, perhaps. Be fun to get Adam involved in that because I know he's into all this stuff as well. He's a leading force in it, and I just think it's fun to get these guys telling stories that you haven't read about. The stories are deep.
And Pete loves telling the stories and he's so emotional about it. And I love that
Yeah,
about him.
I do
Jim
too.
Marietta, as you mentioned, he's part of the original Venice crew and they've got
Yeah,
that company OVC. Um,
yep,
they are bringing back, sort of reimagining
yeah,
the GT350s and they've done their Roadster recently. Some very cool stuff. I visited them down here in like not quite Orange County, more kind of the LA area. And what the family is doing,
yeah,
especially Aaron Shelby, but certainly Randall and Sean to some extent as well. And
yep,
and Aaron and I are also business partners. We're together on a business, and so we chat.
yep,
And he's been just having the greatest time. There's been talk about honoring all of the 60th
yeah.
anniversary events. Le Mans Classic was
Oh, I
amazing.
know. It
I
was
did you
huge.
go?
I didn't go, but I,
Yeah.
I was getting, real time Jim Farley updates. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
And so Shelby was out there, and Adam and I both we have never gone to Le Mans Classic, but I
Mhm.
think part of the announcement was Le Mans Classic is changing from every other year to every
It
year.
is every
Yeah,
year. It's an annual affair now. Yeah.
yeah, that's
There's
good.
nothing
And
like it.
I didn't even know what to expect, but now that I've been getting updates from Aaron Shelby, seeing what he's been doing, I was like,
I
oh,
know. I
that
know.
must have also grown. Talk about these
No kidding.
events grown, like the
No kidding.
displays and the booths and the hospitality and
Yep.
I just didn't think it was going to be that intense, but it's really kind of
Yeah, they know how to do it right. That's for sure. And the racing is amazing. And speaking of Aaron, he's bringing the family R model to the Quail. And you've
okay.
reminded me I need to get back to him because he's asked if he can ship it out early. So I need to I need to give
We
Aaron a
should
call.
get back to him. Although
Yep.
he's probably literally landing like
I know.
today from France, but so he was a little off the grid for a while anyway.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I'm also
Yeah.
waiting for a reply from him, and I realized I've emailing and sending notes, while he was in France working out there.
He and Brooke have been on the road, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yep.
Uh, okay, so we're talking about the Quail and the display events and some of the debuts
Mhm.
of vehicles, but the stuff that you curate in the infield. There's usually a couple of different themes. Like I know you go for sort of, um, you always kind of pepper in something kind of unique, wacky, something
Yep.
kind of original. Um,
That's the fun part, Matt.
yeah. So what do
Yeah.
you got going on in the infield there?
Well, I like to keep a few things under my belt.
Yeah.
But these anniversaries are going to be a load of fun. But we have the traditional classes, post-war sports, post-war racing. Custom coach work is really a cool group that's turned out to be one of the guest favorites because you see cars, Monterey Car Week, you typically think of Pebble Beach, Duesenbergs, Packards, etc. The racetrack has its themes, obviously all race oriented. The custom world is really kind of cut out of Monterey Car Week.
Yeah.
It just is. It's not the Grand National Roadster Show. But at the same time, there are some cars in there that I think people that are used to looking at Ferraris need to see. Builds by people like the Ring Brothers or Chip
Yeah.
Foose. You go down the line, right? And that's our little custom coach work class has turned into that, where you get to see some amazing one-off builds, not all done by professional shops. A lot of
Okay.
these are just individual interpretations, which I think it's really good to include that, to hopefully inspire the next wave. You're talking about the next generation earlier. I think this falls into that
Yeah.
same category. You don't have to write a seven-figure check to get a cool car. You can actually build one if you desire. That's what Craigslist is for.
It is. And we've been fortunate enough, I say we, myself, Adam Carolla, we've been fortunate enough to be able to participate on on both sides of that fence, like
Mhm.
hanging out and talking and with guys like Ring Brothers and Jonathan Ward and people from
Yeah.
Singer. But also many times we've participated and judged, been part of the Hot Wheels Legends tour
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
do,
Cool.
and talk about some really creative home built stuff.
Oh yeah.
Adam and I walked around with with a number of the Hot Wheels people, and Dave Merrick, who I
Oh
love as
yeah.
well, and such a creative Dave
Wow.
Merrick. If you guys have heard the name before, I think he just retired, but he was
Yep.
head of design for Honda and
Yep.
Acura. His title often changed depending on what, much more like the mouthpiece of the company going, we want you to focus on this or focus on this
Yep.
on the PR
Yep.
side. But he was effectively the global head of design for all of Honda and Acura.
Yeah. It's
And
a big job.
to be a judge with him.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've actually done any of the Hot Wheels events or been a judge, but with your background and being a Pebble Beach judge, I think you would really enjoy going around and seeing
Oh,
and
absolutely.
judge of
Absolutely.
any one of the Hot Wheels events.
Well, and so many of us, generationally speaking, I still have my Hot Wheels from back in the day, from the
Yeah,
60s. I've got my Hot Wheels, I've got my Matchbox cars, my Corgi toys. I managed to hang on to this stuff. Fortunately, I had a mom that kind of understood that sports and those cars were the two things that I had the highest level of interest in.
yeah,
And I hung on to these things. And I kind of wondered, where most guys I know got their interest in the car thing from their dad or a grandfather. I lost my dad when I was 8, so that didn't happen. And I kind of wonder, where did it come
yeah.
from? And so it's clearly my mom keeping me in Corgi toys and Hot Wheels and all the rest of it clearly had an influence on me big time. And so I look at them every day. I've got them in my office. I put them in a case and, I just, it takes me back to that time and there was just nothing like it. I love those things. So I'd love to do something like that. It'd be fun.
I if you're serious about it, I think I could help.
Awesome. I'll take you
I
up on that, Matt.
I think I
Yeah.
could help. We get you involved with the
Cool.
with the Hot Wheel guys, at least to participate, go one of the events, and maybe be a judge at one
Be
of the.
fun.
I
Be
think
really fun. Yep.
so the business McCall events. We're talking about the Quail, the automotive side, but you guys do several events. You do Quail. You do a motorcycle gathering as well. Like,
Well, those two events, those are solely owned by the Peninsula Hotel Group, which is just awesome. I had no, I love creating stuff. And again, the management side of that company, it's incredibly impressive. The Peninsula Hotel Group, every one of their hotels is a five-star hotel. worldwide, which is just amazing. And so it's an honor that they view, Quail Lodge is in their portfolio. It's not called a Peninsula Hotel, but the event, the Quail, is a Peninsula event.
Right.
So they get it. And they're behind it 100%. They're the reason why it is what it is. And the management, Courtney Ferranti, who runs the Peninsula Signature Events office, she's been there 18 years now. She's a great leader in that department. I feel lucky because I'm the car and bike guy that gets to kind of come and go and throw ideas out there and bring
Yeah.
people to the table and all of that. I don't do well chained behind a desk, Matt. I'm just not that kind of guy. But I think it's good for the event to have somebody that the idea came out of my head, but I also am very close to the event. It's very personal for me. And like you said earlier, there's a lot of little backstories that take place at that show.
Mhm.
I choreograph and orchestrate a lot of reunions. I get people back together with cars that they had or raced in the day. I don't tell either party. That's kind of my trick. I've done that for years. I used to do it at the Jet Center all the time. Now I do it at Quail all the time. I just love that because there is such an emotional side to this car world. You mentioned Peter Brock gets emotional about just about everything, and it's because it is emotional. It is. These aren't just things. They are to some people, but to enthusiasts, to true enthusiasts, they're part of your life. This is the car community is amazing, really
Yeah,
is.
that's a good point. I talk about Pete Brock getting emotional about it. It's because you can see in him what an important part
Yeah,
of his life, how meaningful it was, how it so much and defined him in many ways. I mean,
absolutely.
just I took a friend, Aaron Hagar, Sammy's
Yeah,
that I do the podcast with.
yep. I know
Um,
Aaron well.
you know Aaron well, of course you do, because they've had displays there. Um,
He used to live here, actually, also.
Yeah, well, he's kind of back. Yeah, he's
He's
up
in
in
Napa now.
Napa.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, back in California.
I took him to Pete's house,
Oh, okay.
and Pete just welcomed him with open arms and
I
walked the
love it.
halls and showed him everything and the original art pieces and that because Aaron is such an artist
Oh, big
and
time.
Aaron asking the type of paper it was on and what you used
Wow.
and just how he was sketching his original initial sketches of the split window Corvette
Yeah.
he did is
That's
framed on the
priceless.
walls
That
there.
is priceless. And I have to tell a quick split window Corvette
Yeah,
story. So I'm not really a domestic car guy. I never really I appreciate them. But aside from Shelby's, but anyway, because of Pete's involvement in that design, I picked up a 63 split window years ago. Daytona blue, and I had a kind of an office mezzanine setup where the cars and bikes were one level below me, but you could just stand at the railing and look down on them, right?
yeah,
So Pete came by and visited one day, and we're chatting away, and mostly dots and stuff. And we're leaning up on the railing, looking down on my 63 split window. And Pete goes, let me tell you something that you probably haven't read about those cars. And I thought, okay, well, this is a priceless, precious moment
yeah.
that as a car guy, you just never forget, right? He goes, take a look at the rear windows on that car, up at the upper edge at the top of the split. And I said, well, what am I looking at, Pete? Because I see a split window Corvette. What is it?
Yeah.
What is it I'm looking for? And he goes, we never got it right. They're not symmetrical. The two sides of the glass,
Okay.
they're off. And he said, it's one of those things I can never unsee it now. It's
Yeah.
like hysterical. Next time you see a split window Corvette, check that out. At the top of the rear window, the where it should be symmetrical, it's not. It's off.
I mean, now you probably know what to look for an original car versus
I know.
a fully restored or replica car because a
Totally.
good metal fabricator would fix that.
Would fix it.
Would
It's
fix
like we've
it.
got to fix this flaw. And it's like, no, actually, to hear Peter talk about how they could never get it
Yeah.
right, I guess something, the radius, whatever, what glass was they were working with, it just didn't work. And so every production split windows got that issue in the back, and I love it.
Um, in the similar vein, Pete Brock came by a few years ago when he delivered like the Aerovault trailer. Adam
Oh
Carolla
yeah.
bought one and he's like, I'm going to bring it to you.
Yeah.
So, and of course he just powers through. He just loads it up, tows it out here. comes in, unhooks it, takes a few pictures, hits the bathroom, gets in his car and drives home. Like he just did it all
Unreal.
in a day. This is just a few
Unreal.
years ago, but we were walking around Adam's collection, and Adam has the BRE Roadster, right? The
Yeah.
first Roadster.
Yep.
And the car, if you picture it white with the stripes, and then it has this air dam down below that's blue.
Hmm.
And just walking around, Pete's like, "Yeah, it's good to see you guys again. Love the collection." And he's looking at the Roadster, and he goes, "See that Roadster?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "That air dam down there." That's kind of like a splitter, right? It's got a little lip and a splitter, and it's got little brake ducts going into it.
Okay. Yeah.
He goes, you were not allowed to have any type of splitter. And he goes, so I designed it with the brake ducts and I got it approved
Oh my gosh.
as brake ducts, right? Instead of the
Wow.
splitter. And he goes, and then we smoked everybody. The next season, everyone had brake ducts, quote.
Oh, you gotta love it.
Yeah,
I
he's
love
like,
that.
because he understands aerodynamics. He
Oh,
understands
big
aerodynamics,
time.
uh, but before people were really considering aerodynamics. It was something
Yeah.
he really studied, right? And of course,
Yeah.
now the story of Shelby going, take the Cobra and make
Yeah.
it go fast on the Mulsanne straight. How do you do it? In his head, he's like, we need to design aerodynamics. We need to
Exactly.
design the Shelby Daytona Coupe is what he
Yeah.
basically came up with. Another one, by the way, he said no two of those are the same. Each
Yeah.
one evolved. He kept refining it and refining it. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so his brake ducts ended up being a big
I
aero
love it.
advantage, and he knew that the whole time. He
That
knew what
is
he
so
was
cool.
doing. Okay, so looking forward to the Quail. We're gonna see you
Big
out at the
fun.
track. Are you doing any driving, doing any racing?
No, and it's actually Pete's the reason why I got out of it. Out of vintage racing. I had a 510. I had a B-Sedan 510. I ran it a couple of years ago at the Velocity event.
Yeah,
And it's a car that had 8 logbooks, the real deal and all that. And I just kind of restored it back to its original configuration of the first photograph of it in the logbook and ran with a great group. I just love that 2.5 group is phenomenal. There's just no doubt about it. But I got a little discouraged because I was getting dropped out of turn 11 at Laguna, going down the front straight where there is no driver talent involved in that. When you get passed by everybody, it's because you're down on horsepower, right? So I'm running
yeah,
a 1600, which is what the car had in it in the day. And it's a Rebello, so it's the right stuff. But I mean, dropped like a stone. And Pete was really generous with his time. He came over to the paddock, afterwards with actually with John Morton. And I'm like, guys, I'm struggling here. I'm running, mid to back pack and just getting dropped. And both of them said in like stereo, well, you do know those guys are running 235 horsepower motors, right? Like that's what you need to do. And
yeah,
I'm like, I'm out. If you weren't doing it in the day, why? I don't get it. There's no check for,
yeah, yeah.
and no disrespect to that group is phenomenal and I love it, but that wasn't really for me. I just thought I'm not going to chase that. It's ironically, so I sell the car. Wonderful guy that bought the car. Don't need to mention any names, but it had a motor transplant, and he won Velocity the next year.
Yeah,
There you
so
go.
we've been down that road as
Yeah,
well.
I know you have. I know, and so
Um,
I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I just thought, you know what? I'm
even,
kind of a history buff, and I just thought, well, I don't want to rewrite it. I just want to participate
yeah,
in what was then, not what could be now.
and
You
and
know?
and and you're talking about the motor, but once you even have the big motor, those guys, talk to Dave Stone, talk to
Oh
Terry
yeah,
Hermish, talk to any of
yeah,
those guys.
yeah,
They, um, uh, Jim Frula as well.
yeah.
Talk to any of those guys. Now they're talking about the actual gearbox, the actual
Oh,
ratio.
everything,
Like, I
everything.
mean, and I know that's not uncommon, but they're like, no, here's the serial number of the gearbox because nobody
Yeah,
was making gears. You couldn't re-gear them. You have to get the
yeah,
certain box for it. And then what are they
yeah.
running for brakes? And do the brakes work? Do you need them?
I know, I know. And
So
so it's just my own kind of personal thing. I just thought, to me, that's SCCA racing. That's like how do we interpret those rules and then find out how to bend them, which is what racing is. And
right.
but vintage, I'm like, vintage, really? no. So anyway,
But
no
you're right.
regrets.
Over the years, it's gotten so competitive. We talk about how
No,
the events have grown,
I know.
and yes, skirting the rules. I mean, I enjoy watching some IndyCar and friends with several of the drivers, and
Yeah,
boy, a lot of controversy over, cheating or people
I
getting
know.
fired, and the smallest little thing,
I know.
um, not necessarily good for the sport, but that's kind of
That's racing.
it's racing. It's kind of
That's
what
racing.
happens.
Which I get. I just don't know that that should be racing in the vintage circles. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. To me, it is my view of it is that's history. History is being preserved. Here's what these things used to look like and sound like, and isn't this great? And everybody's having fun instead of who's turning the fastest lap times with the biggest cheater motor and, whatever.
No, but all of racing was founded on this competitiveness and being better,
Totally.
pushing, go faster,
Yeah.
further,
Yeah.
and
And
how do
don't
we
get me
do it in
wrong.
vintage racing and go, everybody's limited by
Yeah.
rules from 40 years ago. They're gonna
I-
just scratch their heads like they're doing, going, how do we, but then what? Like
Yeah.
I I joke with Adam. Adam's actually made a really interesting point. I tell him, was like, race is coming up. You better hit the bathroom,
Right.
like, because you know,
Right.
you're 6'2", and
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes he'll want to lose 10 pounds before Monterey Car Week.
Yep.
He did the Toyota Pro Celebrity Race
Oh yeah.
many times. He did very well. A couple times. One as a celebrity and came back, and one as a pro. And when they assigned the cars, he had like number 9 or something like that, or number 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was during the press conference. They're like, "Do you think you're going to win?" He's like, "Yes." He goes, "Because everybody else has number 21 or 25. That's twice as many stickers on their car as mine." He goes, "So I'm literally lighter because I have a
That's
single
good.
digit number on
That's
there."
good. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Uh, but yeah, it just kind of talk about every little advantage you can get, right?
Oh,
Just
totally. And don't get me wrong, I have absolutely zero disrespect for what goes on in those sort. It just wasn't for me. I
stick
don't
to
want to say
bicycle
I'm,
racing.
yeah, yeah, and plenty of track time, motorcycles, car, I'm not slowing down at all. I just didn't want to get involved in chasing that rainbow, so to speak.
Because
So
of the vintage aspect, because you're
yeah, just
racing
because of the vintage.
motorcycles, you're racing bicycles, and everyone is reaching for every little advantage they can. It's
Yeah.
just without you're not racing, maybe I'm guessing, a vintage bicycle.
No, no. Although
Right.
I do have my first 10 speed.
I'm sure
I've
I'm
got a
sure
Raleigh
you do.
Grand Prix that I managed to, I got it back. Who has their first 10 speed still? But
Yeah.
I bought that bike when I was 12. I sold it when I had just turned 14 and used the money to buy a Honda CL90, and I still have that. So that
And then you went and
motorcycle.
bought the bicycle back at some point?
No, well, the bicycle was given back to me, which was amazing. The guy I had sold it to was moving out of town. He tracked me down and he said, I don't know if you remember me, but I bought your 10 speed, 100 years ago. I'm moving to Oregon. Would you like the bike back? And I thought, oh my God, I've got it hanging in my shop wall. I mean, who gets their 10 speed back?
Wait,
That
but
bike,
how long after you sold it to when you were a kid?
oh, I was in my 30s when I got it back. So yeah, just amazing story. And then the Honda 90, I bought that bike without any parental approval. Had to hide it down the street. Just typical. I know so many people that did that, right? But that Honda 90 taught me everything I needed to know in life. 14 years old, riding on the street with a dark helmet. I've always been kind of tall for my age. And so, if the bike broke, I had to learn how to fix it. I had to learn how to ride it. I couldn't get in trouble on it or the gig was over. Uh,
Yep.
so that bike taught me just about everything I needed to know in life. Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, 14, 15, and had like a Honda scooter, and
Yeah.
kind of the same thing. Like, my parents knew I had it, but I couldn't do anything wrong because,
That's it.
I sort of take away the,
Yeah.
my ability to ride it, and a car in front of me hit the brakes hard. I hit
Uh-oh.
the brakes hard. I definitely hit more front brake than rear brake, and I
Uh-oh.
flipped that thing. I went over it and it flipped
No.
with me. And
Uh,
then my first thought was, oh, now I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to get this thing taken away from me. My mom's going to freak out. What were you
Oh,
doing? It's
geez.
too dangerous. So
Yeah.
I was just like bandaging myself up,
Oh,
all my
no.
brother going, let's try to fix this thing before we got to take it home. Like this never happened. I'd rather tell my mom I was running cross country and I tripped on a
I
rock,
tripped. Yeah,
than
yeah,
tell her I
exactly. Isn't that
flipped the
funny?
scooter.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe I'll call her this weekend and tell her I flipped the scooter, see what she
You
thinks about
should.
it now.
You should. I think statute of limitations has run out on that one, Matt. So
Yeah.
you're safe.
Yeah. She's probably
Yeah.
like, I know what you did.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
well, Gordon, I appreciate the time. It's fun as always. I know there's a lot more to talk about, but just looking forward to catching up with you during Monterey Car Week.
It's
Uh,
always fun, Matt. Thank you.
um, and again, guys, if you haven't been out to Monterey Car Week yet, I know some of the events are kind of exclusive and maybe sold out, but I know you've heard me say this before. If you can, just try to buy a day pass, come out to the track. You'll just
Yeah.
see uh, some of the coolest cars, and not everything has to be the high dollar car. I still
No.
believe they curate around 550 cars to race,
Yeah.
but other cars are out there, and it really is just the greatest mix of vintage racing cars that you'll ever find, and not to mention the greatest atmosphere of people. You'll have such a good time out
Oh,
there.
100%, Matt. And between the track, if you just go to Ocean Avenue, downtown Carmel,
Yeah.
and hang out, grab a coffee, hang out, you're not going to believe what you see drive by.
Oh,
It's
yeah. Just
there are a lot of free things to do during that week. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot of fun roads. If you get a little bit out of town, there's some fun drives. It's just a great time. We get about 100,000 people show up to the Monterey Peninsula during Car Week.
yeah. You
So,
could
it's
You want to do it on a budget, you want to see cool cars, just hang
it's
out
easy.
at Starbucks in front of the Portola.
Totally. Totally. You're gonna get a
Right? I mean,
show every couple minutes, you know?
like just the cars that pull in and you be able to gawk over the ropes to see a big part of the
Yeah.
RM auction that they put on there. Like
Yep.
you could just buy yourself a $22 latte from Starbucks and hang out there and
And
spend
just
your day
milk it.
doing that.
Yeah.
Spend your
Yep.
day doing that.
Awesome.
All right, guys, thanks so much. And until next time, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.